Okay, let's talk about something I think we've all felt. You're either totally burnt out from the grind, or you're just plain bored. It feels like there's no middle ground, right? Well, what if there's another way? A way to actually design your life so you're not just bouncing between those two extremes, but you're cycling through real, creative growth. That's exactly what we're going to dive into today, using some incredible insights from the thinker Dan Koh.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with a new way to think about boredom and burnout. Then we'll jump into something he calls the 4 seasons of growth. After that, we'll get into channeling your curiosity, mastering consistency, embracing uncertainty, and finally, we'll wrap up with the one skill, really, that ties this whole thing together. Let's get into it.
So everything really kicks off with a feeling we are all way too familiar with: boredom. But here's the thing, how we choose to deal with that feeling, that single choice can literally define the entire path your life takes. It's a fork in the road, and the two paths couldn't be more different.
And this question right here, it's not just a casual, hey, what'd you do this weekend kind of thing. According to Dan Koh, this is one of the most important, one of the most defining questions of your entire life. Why? Because your answer really determines if your life is going to happen to you by default, or if it's going to be built by you, by design.
You know, the easy answer, the default cure for that boredom, is distraction. We all do it. Endless scrolling, binge watching, just consuming. It's the path of least resistance, for sure. But what Koh points out is that there's another path. A path that doesn't just waste time, but actually creates value with it.
And this is a huge mental shift. Think about it. Boredom isn't this negative thing you need to escape from. It's not a problem. It's a signal. Your brain and your body are basically telling you, hey, I've got extra energy here. The real question then becomes, what are you going to do with it? And the answer is so simple, yet so powerful. If you're bored, build something.
Okay, so this really breaks it down. On one hand, you've got the default path. This is entropy, right? Life just kind of happens. Your time expands to fill the boredom you give it, and your habits just slide into whatever's easiest. But on the other hand, you have the intentional path. This is where you grab that boredom by the horns and point it at a project. You're not just letting life happen, you are actively shaping it. Okay, but here's where a lot of people get tripped up. They hear build and think it just means work harder. But that is a massive, massive trap. It's not just about grinding it out. We've got to get past this idea that just putting in more hours is the whole story. This can be a tough pill to swallow, but it's so important. What you're working on is often way more critical than how hard you're working. We have this myth that if you just grind hard enough, results are guaranteed. But the reality, hard work on the wrong thing gets you, well, pretty much nowhere. Real progress, those huge leaps forward, they don't just come from discipline. They come from creativity, from finding the right thing to pour that energy into.
Okay, so this all builds up to a really cool framework that Dan Koh calls the 4 seasons of growth. And the most important thing to get right away is that this isn't a straight line. It's a cycle, a natural, repeating pattern that we all go through in our creative work and our careers.
And here they are: lost, curiosity, intensity, and consistency. Again, I really want to drive this home. It's not a ladder you climb once. It's a cycle you're going to repeat over and over again. And each time you go through it, you're building on what you did before, establishing a new, higher level for yourself.
All right, let's break down those first 3 seasons. This is basically the journey of going from, I have no idea what to do next, all the way to making these huge leaps in progress.
So the whole thing often starts when you feel lost. This happens a lot after you hit a big goal, and you're suddenly like, now what? And if you can fight that urge to just turn on Netflix, you naturally drift into the curiosity phase. You start poking around, exploring new things, going down those internet rabbit holes. You experiment until, bam, you find that one thing you just can't put down. And that's what pulls you, almost like gravity, into the intensity phase, that amazing period of deep, obsessive focus on something new and exciting.
And this chart really shows you what that intensity phase looks like in practice. Look at that. It's not a slow, steady, linear climb. It's a massive, non-linear spike in progress. That jump is fueled by all that novelty and challenge and obsession we were just talking about. This isn't just incremental improvement. This is where game-changing breakthroughs happen.
But here's the reality check. You can't live in that intense peak forever. You'd burn out. So after that massive spike, you enter what might be the most important season for long-term success. Mastering sustainable consistency. This gym analogy is just perfect for explaining the difference. Think of the intensity phase as a dirty bulk at the gym. You're just trying to pack on as much muscle mass as possible, maybe not in the cleanest way. It's all about rapid growth. But then, the consistency phase, that's the cut. That's when you clean things up, systematize your workouts and diet, and reveal all the muscle you built. You're defining what you've created and setting a new, sustainable baseline for yourself.
So how do you actually get that intense focus? Well, you have to accept a hard truth. You cannot do everything at once. I love this quote from Oliver Burkeman. Decide in advance what you're going to suck at. It's brilliant. It's about knowing there are no perfect solutions, only trade-offs. If you want to go all in on one thing, you have to consciously decide what other things are going to get less of your attention, at least for a little while.
Okay, so this cycle makes sense. But the big question is, how do you actually navigate it? Especially when you're in that lost phase, how do you figure out what's next? Well, Cohen gives us two really powerful tools to help with exactly that.
The first tool is all about your mindset. And the core idea is right here. Your potential isn't some fixed thing you're born with. It's directly tied to how much uncertainty you're willing to live with. It's not about taking one massive, terrifying leap into the unknown. It's more like stretching a muscle. You just have to be willing to repeatedly take small, manageable steps into what feels a little uncertain. That progressive overload of discomfort is what actually builds your capacity for growth over time.
And the second tool is an amazing, super practical exercise called the anti-vision. Instead of getting paralyzed trying to map out your perfect dream life, you flip it. You start by getting painfully clear on what you absolutely, positively do not want your future to look like. Think about past pains, future fears, write it all down. That's your anti-vision. And it gives you this powerful push away from what you want to avoid. Then you just write down the opposite, and boom, that's your vision, your pull motivation. It gives you a direction, a North Star to move towards.
All right, finally, let's talk about the one skill that holds this entire system together. This isn't just another productivity hack. This is the meta skill, the skill that makes all the other skills better. And it's all about learning to think clearly. The number one tool for that? Writing.
But we have to totally redefine what we mean by writing. This isn't about becoming a best-selling author or worrying about comma splices. Forget that. Writing is just organized thinking. It's taking all that chaotic noise swirling around in your head and forcing it into coherent sentences on a page. When you do that, you can't hide. It shows you where your logic is weak, it helps you connect ideas, and it literally reprograms your brain to think with more clarity.
And that leads to this really important point about growth. As you go through these cycles, as you think and learn and write, your opinions should change. You should evolve. So if you look back and you've never contradicted your old self, that's actually a red flag. It probably means you're stuck, that you're too attached to an old belief that's holding you back from your next evolution.
So at the end of the day, this whole framework, it's not just about getting more stuff done. It's a roadmap for evolving as a person. It's about designing a life that's meaningful because it's always growing, not because you found one perfect answer and stuck with it forever. Which leaves us with one final question to really think about. To get to that next season of your own growth, what belief are you ready to contradict?